In the summer of 1951, deep in the scenic Catskills Mountains of New York, a small, humble camp named Jened quietly opened its doors. But behind this modest beginning lay a revolutionary vision, one that would transform the lives of many and spark a movement that changed the course of America's disability history. For centuries, those who moved differently, spoke differently, or saw the world through a different lens were cast into the shadows, rejected by societies that equated disability with moral failure. For over 300 years, beginning with the colonial era poor laws, American policies laid the foundation for the institutionalization of disabled individuals, treating them as burdens to be managed rather than members of the community. By the early 20th century, these prejudices culminated in the eugenics movement, which sought to eliminate disability through forced sterilization and restrictive laws. Even landmark acts like the Smith Act in 1920, the first federally funded program to help people with disabilities in the United States, reframed support as dependency and defined disability as a problem to fix rather than a part of the human condition. Voices were silenced, lives confined. In the early 20th century, many still lived in institutions hidden from society. Public facilities, schools, and workplaces were not designed to accommodate their needs, reinforcing systemic discrimination. The prevailing charity model viewed disability as a personal tragedy, emphasizing care and sympathy rather than empowerment and rights. This environment left individuals with disabilities disconnected from opportunities for self-expression and community engagement. At a time when most camps were inaccessible to those with physical, intellectual, or developmental disabilities, Camp Jened dared to offer something different by prioritizing inclusivity and fostering a community where everyone belonged.
What we tried to do was provide the kind of environment where teenagers could be teenagers without all the stereotypes and the labels.
Larry Ellison and a group of visionaries recognized the right of people with disabilities to inclusion and took on the responsibility of creating a space where they could thrive. Camp Jened was more than just a camp. It empowered kids, teens, and adults with disabilities to embrace their true selves for the first time. In the 1950s, society's perception of disability was often grounded in exclusion and stereotypes. But at Camp Jened, campers weren't defined by their disabilities. They had the right to express themselves and be seen for who they were.
I felt like it was important to be inclusive because I didn't really have a lot of role models. As I was growing up who had disabilities, it made people feel like they were more a part of what was happening. It was more free and open than certainly what I was experiencing in my day-to-day life at home. Even when we were that young, we knew that we were all being sidelined.
You knew what?
We didn't want to sideline anybody. We wanted to hear what everybody had to say. We were willing to listen.
Campers were given a right to be heard. Group discussions became central to the camp experience, inviting everyone to share their dreams, frustrations, and ideas.
A friend of mine who I was in school with, in a special ed class with, Ruthie, she said, we have friends who go to this Camp Jened. Why don't we try it? So we went. It was fun because I felt like I fit in, and I was around people who were my age who just talked to me and were with me like everyone else.
The world outside Camp Jened was changing rapidly as movements for civil rights, women's liberation, and social justice gained momentum. So did the awareness among Jened's campers that they deserved a voice in society. The camp was not just a retreat, but a launching pad for something bigger. Many of the bonds formed at the camp laid the foundation for the disability rights movement. Activists like Judy Heumann and others were inspired by the campus community spirit and shared belief in fighting for equality. Judith Heumann was a pioneering disability rights activist, often called the mother of the disability rights movement.
For me, the camp experience really was empowering because we helped empower each other that the status quo is not what it needed to be.
In the early 1970s at UC Berkeley, an independent living movement gathered people with disabilities and make their own choices.
The first time I think that a group of severely disabled individuals have really gotten together to solve some mutual problems.
Many of them alums of Camp Jeanette. They were brewing a whole new world. Their efforts laid the groundwork for one of the most significant victories in disability rights, the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, the first federal law to prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities in programs receiving federal funding. However, the act was the subject of intense debate and compromise on the part of Congress and the president. Earlier versions of the bill were vetoed by President Nixon twice. While he eventually signed it into law in 1973, enforcement lagged for years. Federal officials argued that implementing it would impose significant costs on agencies and institutions, making accessibility across public and private sectors, such as retrofitting buildings, a burden. Agencies responsible for enforcing Section 504, such as the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, claimed they lacked sufficient resources to oversee compliance effectively. Frustrated by the delay, disability rights activists organized nationwide protests.
On April 5, 1977, people with disabilities across the nation demonstrated to demand that regulations implementing Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act be signed into law.
The demonstration is going on throughout the entire nation, Washington, New York, Denver, here in San Francisco. Immediately after that demonstration this morning, the handicapped started invading the building.
In 1977, these determined activists staged the longest occupation of a federal building in U.S. history. For 26 days, they held the ground demanding the enforcement of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. As the fight intensified, support came from other groups advocating for marginalized communities. The Black Panthers provided food and support, ensuring the demonstrators, many of whom had significant disabilities, could sustain their protests. Their assistance reflecting solidarity across different civil rights struggles.
I mean, in 1977, we literally couldn't take the bus, we couldn't cross the street, we couldn't get into a public library. But we took over a federal building for almost a month and took down the federal government on the issue that we targeted. And that's an amazing accomplishment.
People can move together, people can be together, and can work together. And once we find out how to liberate each other and liberate ourselves, we will be empowered.
The camp really allowed us to begin to fantasize what we wanted the world to look like, and then also began to question why things weren't happening.
Camp Jeanette's legacy is deeply woven into the fabric of the disability rights movement. From the passage of the Disabilities Act of 1990 to the ongoing advocacy today, its impact endures in every curb cut, accessible class, and workplace inclusion policy.
Let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down. God bless you all.
Camp Jeanette wasn't just a camp. It was the birthplace of a revolution, a place where dreams were nurtured, voices found their strength, and a community found its courage to change the world. It taught us that having rights comes with the responsibility to protect them, not just for ourselves, but for each other. And when voices rise together, they can move mountains.